Hi everyone, and welcome. Thank you for joining us today. My name is Kieran. I'm the Digital Events Manager at Connecting Up and TechSoup New Zealand. Connecting Up and TechSoup New Zealand are part of the Info Exchange Group. We're a non-for-profit social enterprise that tackles the biggest social challenges through the smart and creative use of technology. For those of you who haven't attended a webinar session with us before, Connecting Up and TechSoup New Zealand facilitate an annual training calendar of online webinars, workshops, boot camps and webcons to help the social sector upskill in all things digital. Check out our training and education menu on our website for more events that we have coming up. But enough about me. I'm excited to welcome you today to Intro to Microsoft 365 with Conan Daly from the IT team. Conan is the General Manager of the IT Team Limited in New Zealand-based, born in the cloud managed service provider. Over the last 10 years or so, Conan and his team have worked alongside many commercial and non-profit organizations, supporting them in their migration to the cloud and their adoption of the Microsoft 365 suite of technologies. Before we begin today, we have some housekeeping. All your lines are muted, so if you have any technical issues, please type it into the questions box on your webinar panel and I'll be able to assist you. If you have any questions during the session, please also type that in the question box and Conal will answer them at the end of the webinar or during the webinar when he can. We really encourage you to ask as many questions as you think of throughout the session to make this as dynamic and interactive a session as possible. No question is too silly, but also note your comments and questions will not appear to the entire group. If you're on Wi-Fi connection and have multiple programs open, these sometimes can affect the quality of your audio and video. If possible, please close some of these programs to help you have the best experience today. Please note that the webinar is being recorded and a link to the recording and the slides will be sent to you as soon as we can after the webinar ends. Before we start, I'd also like to remind you that there's a short survey at the end of the webinar and we would really appreciate it if you could take time to complete this. That's all from me. I'll hand you over to Conan.
Thank you, Kira. Appreciate the intro. Brilliant. Thank you to everyone for attending. This is a very interesting topic and I really do hope you get a lot out of it. Because of the range of positions or states that people could be in with their Journey to 365, you might be able to get a huge amount out of it. You might be able to get some out of this webinar, but I expect you'll get something valuable to take away. And I encourage you, if you feel that some of the content is stuff you've already seen or completed, use the Q&A to make sure you get your time's worth out of me. So as we said, introduction to 365. It's a big part of what a common IT environment looks like in an organisation, and it's very beneficial to not-for-profits, both in New Zealand and Australia. So we're keen to make sure as many of you can take as much advantage of the system as possible. So what I'd like to do before we get into this is I've got a couple of polls, and it's really going to help me to, it's a little bit of census, which is topical for our, at least our New Zealand audience, but it does help me to understand perhaps where the majority of the audience are and in their journey rather than geographically, and that I will cater a little bit of my language or my content to that, the results. So yes, the poll should be open. Poll number 1. So yes, are you presently running 365? If you're not sure, if you know you've got Office, but you're not for 365, just feel free to throw I'm not sure. Okay, so, and the results. Yes, brilliant. So a few aren't, and I guess as you'll hear soon, you know, running Office 365 and running Office 365 can be two different things. That will make sense soon. Brilliant. Kara, if we could go into the next poll. I also like that no one had not sure, which was interesting. I remember last time I did that poll, a third were not sure. How far down the M365 journey are you? So not started would be you haven't done anything, you're using other services. Maybe Office by itself would be, let's call that not started for now. If you're using email and Office, that's one step. Email, Office, OneDrive and SharePoint, or bits of it. Email, Office, OneDrive, SharePoint and Intune. If you're using that, you're doing very well. And the above and more, if you're doing that, you're doing very well. Might need to attend another webinar, but we will see. There'll be something in here for you, I'm sure. Oh, good. If Vinny answered those bottom ones, then I might have to start rewriting some slides. So that's good. Yes, obviously a few have not started. Many are using email and Office only, and quite a few are using email, Office, OneDrive, SharePoint, which is great. So you're getting right in there. So look, this webinar will be catered towards everyone that has answered in some way. So that means if you are using email, SharePoint, OneDrive, etc., I'm not going to say come back in 20 minutes or anything like that, but there will be elements that are here that are catered towards those that are not as far as you. So, but we will go deeper. Brilliant. Okay. So and number 3, thank you very much, Kerry, your mind reader. What is the key reason for wanting to delve into 365 or make use of it, etc.? This is more of a census question as opposed to helping me with the presentation today. Perhaps priorities is would be the better reason to submit. Okay, so we have most of the new functionality. That's great. Some is not-for-profit licenses, understand the savings, and a few are security. And get my binoculars out. 16% other reasons. So that's cool. Brilliant. Thank you very much, Karen. That does help. I think particularly the first and second slides really help me to understand the audience. Brilliant. So can the audience see my presentation, Kira? I'm just wondering, it had a different viewer.
Not yet.
Okay. Well, they got cut. Beautiful.
There you go.
What about now? Perfect. Thank you. All right. So as Kira said, this is Introduction to 365 and we'll get started. So what you're going to get out of today. So why is the cloud important and beneficial, particularly to not-for-profits? What is M365? What is Office 365 and M365? Why do those terminologies get used? The benefits of Microsoft 365. And also, when you make a mistake and you're doing a presentation, you can do things like this on the fly, which is a feature in 365, including other people do it to you as well, which I'll get into a bit later. So the benefits of Microsoft 365, key functions, common migration paths, license options, and how to get started. And I'd love some Q&A. You can fire questions out throughout the webinar, and sometimes they'll surface to me, or wait until the end. So a little bit about the IT team. Oh, excuse me, a little bit about the IT team. We formed in 2011 due to, well, not because of a natural disaster, but it was a big part of our genesis. We've been using 365 since 2011, which is when it launched. We do a wide range of IT services, including 365 deployments, 365 help, and ongoing IT support. We have a large not-for-profit base. We work with customers in NZ and Australia, and most of the migrations are performed completely remotely, but obviously we do a lot of on-the-ground work as well. Brilliant. Just skip through these. So, what is the cloud? I know this is a very basic question, but it does help to just set it up because sometimes it can answer questions. So, generally the services are held in data centers somewhere, multiple data centers. That means they're often geographically redundant. If a city goes underwater or breaks off and floats into the Pacific Ocean, technically your services, if they're cloud-based and we're effective with that, should continue. Hardware independent, they're not on a single server somewhere. But that also means that just because you have a virtualized server and it's redundant, doesn't mean it's the cloud. Subscription-based is a common criteria. It covers SaaS, PaaS, and infrastructure as a service. Those are common technologies that you'll hear. For your information, 365 is part of the SaaS band. and the infrastructure is managed by a cloud provider. So that was just a little bit of to set the ground for those that might be a little bit not sure about how it differs from their Exchange server in their Office, for example. So Office 365 versus Microsoft 365. This can be a confusing, I guess, descriptors, especially when people like me accidentally use the old one. The long and short of it is that it was always called Office 365 from 2011 to about 2019. Then Microsoft, or 20 even, then Microsoft launched Microsoft 365, I believe it's, let's say 2017 and 18. And that was actually a more premium version of Office 365. So that had the device stuff where you had security for your devices and licensing for your devices and that kind of thing, not related to Office and Exchange and SharePoint and that type of thing. And then Microsoft realized the confusing nature of the way they do branding, which is still confusing. And they basically said, hey, people getting confused between having Office and Office 365. So we're going to make the whole thing called Microsoft 365. So if you are using, it's fair to use the term Office 365. People still use it. I still use it, as you can tell. But technically, the platform, if you're holding your data in the cloud, if you're holding it in SharePoint, if you're holding it in Exchange for email, if you're using Teams, that is Microsoft 365. Office 365 technically is just the Office software now. So hopefully that explains it. So 3 or 4 years ago, this webinar would have been called Introduction to Office 365, and now it's called Introduction to Microsoft 365. So why did I put this slide up? Having 365 without really having 365 or being in 365, I should say. So this is a common thing, and it may or may not apply to people in this room, but most organizations will have 365 in one way or another. And that's because if you go out and buy Office, it is branded as 365. And so that was the start of it. So people so commonly we'll come up to a customer, and they ask them, a new customer, and say, hey, do you already have 365? And they'll usually say yes. Often what they actually have is the Office software, 1 license for Office, or 5 licenses for Office. And I purchased it from, Dick Smith Electronics or something like that, and whatever the modern equivalent is, and they actually have to sign into 365 to activate that license. So technically, they do often have a tenancy. But what we say is that's, not really utilizing 365. That is having Office, but we wouldn't say you're utilizing Microsoft 365, particularly as a not-for-profit, where often if you're doing that, you could use it so much more. We believe the criteria for utilizing 365 is really once you've got your email services within that platform. So what is it? What is 365? It's a broad question. It is a collection of services. Some of these icons, I don't even know what they are. But there's a collection of your Office software, your Word, your Excel, and your PowerPoint, and then also services such as Exchange, which is email, Teams, SharePoint, To Do, Planner. Technically, they say Bing, although I would argue against that. And those forms, Power Automate. Now, generally, they're all hosted in the cloud, and the data is stored in the cloud. But some of them are software you're running day-to-day, like Word, and some of them are services you're needing to access day-to-day, like Teams. So that is 365. It is very broad, and even organizations like us that pride ourselves on knowing quite a lot about the service, we don't use everything. I used to say we don't use half. We probably use half or more, but there is technologies we just haven't gotten deep into, the likes of we could use make far greater use of the Power platform, Power BI, and we could make far better use of things like Planner, although we do use them. And then some of the more advanced things that are coming out around AI are very interesting as well. So 365 is a whole lot of services. The other thing is the data is stored in the cloud predominantly, although it can be stored local, and it's managed by Microsoft. The system is managed by Microsoft. Your IT provider like us does not manage it. Now, when we say manage, we don't store it. We can sometimes be monitoring it. We can sometimes be administering it, but the IT provider is not required for it to run. they're often required to help. So this is a collection of common services. This image is a little bit more out of date and a little bit more grainy. So you have the likes of Word, Excel, PowerPoint, but then you also have the likes of SharePoint, Flow, which is now called Power Automate, OneDrive, Yammer, which is a little bit out of date, and others. So key benefits of 365 for not-for-profits. So it has deep potential. That is one thing I would say over the likes of, let's say, Google Workspaces or other platforms if you're using a local server. You'll potentially, if you have the time and the inclination, you'll be able to continue, like us, to every few, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 months to adopt a new function. Now that might be a function of an existing system, like a SharePoint or a Teams, or it could be a new tool. And you can, if you have the sort of the keenness for it, you can continue to improve your organization's usage of these tools, which usually improves the security or the productivity or the efficiency. It's low or no cost for not-for-profits. So you could pay $0 or you could pay a small amount per user, a lot smaller. So for example, the most expensive license that most not-for-profits are on cost is Business Premium, which is around $9 per user, above the free set. And for a commercial organization, that starts at about $31. So there's some big savings in there. 365 also does the basics very well. Exchange works really well. If you just want to use the basics, it does it very well. And it wasn't always so. OneDrive and SharePoint, 5, 6 years ago were pretty rough. Services such as Teams and SharePoint allow you to do things you're not able to do with a file server or with other systems. So in some cases, we're moving a function from one system to another. In other cases, you're doing things that you just can't really do. There might be another service you can use like Slack to achieve it, but fundamentally it goes beyond traditional IT. The basic security features of 365 are very strong, but there are also deep security options. And I'll come to them a little bit later, but there are some really cool things you can do. The mobility, I guess just being in 365, your mobility really does grow from a local server. A lot of you may know this already, but you can do anything anywhere. You're not tied to a specific office unless you really want to be. Your data is more based on the workstation than the server. So if you're using a server presently, or a NAS, or storing it on a local machine or something like that, using this will have a dramatic impact on your day-to-day work. The standards of 365 are reputable generally. If you have an audit from a ministry or a government body, generally what information you can get from those services or those, Microsoft and the likes via your provider will meet the needs, particularly if you're in Australia where the data is stored. And there's less dependence on IT providers like us. When you had a server in the office, you needed to continue to have us and pay us and do a lot of the work. With 365, we are really about helping and administering, and there's just less dependence and usually less cost for your IT providers or your managed service provider like us. So how are not-for-profits using 365? So I thought I'd throw this out. So most NGOs start small. NGOs, not-for-profits. Exchange Online is a great place to start. We're going to go through the migration path later. Migrating to 365 will just improve your security straight out of the bat. You're going to have some password policies that are going to improve. You're going to have standard filtering, which is going to improve. Video conferencing is often the next thing that people often do, and that was particularly in a COVID world. Now you may already be doing it if you're not using 365 through the likes of Zoom, but bringing it in one can help. E1 licenses are free. Also, as I'll show you later, Business Premium licenses are free for up to 10. So E1 licenses can do pretty much everything that you need except for the office software. So if you've got 100 staff, you can do a lot with that. Sometimes we find not-for-profits will have volunteers and other people that maybe are not full-time employees, and you can give them a license and give them access to your data. Office software purchased from TechSoup for an overall lower price. So a combination of E1 and Office software via TechSoup can be a very effective way. Right, so the common things that people use. Exchange Online. This is kind of obvious, and I know most people have this, so I won't touch on it too far. But here, Exchange is really is email. It runs very well for a mail platform. Sometimes I feel like I'm speaking obviously here, but there are a lot of organizations that use services like POP and IMAP, and they don't know or haven't seen the synchronization that will often occur with a good mail platform. So what does Exchange Online do? It's a very functional mail platform. I'm going to go through this reasonably fast. It synchronizes to all devices. You don't need to click send receive. All data is automatically backed up, so you don't lose it if your device gets broken or something like that. It has a very good calendar function, including shared calendars and the like. It has built-in anti-spam, at least a good base level. It's similar to Google Mail or Google Workspaces if you use that, but it is more powerful and works better with Outlook. All right. So I could spend a lot of time talking about Exchange. It pretty much does everything you need in a mail platform, but I'll continue. Teams. So this is a common, powerful tool that often doesn't get used very well. This is just a screenshot of the instant messaging functions within Teams, which are commonly an underused part of it. Additionally, these are the channels that are in Teams, and this is the segment that we would always encourage customers to do. Like I had the slide at the beginning, you can be using Teams without really using it. So a lot of people believe Teams is the video conferencing, this kind of thing, although it looks a lot better there than it does when we're talking in our company. But this is just a small part of Teams. It is often the least important part of Teams. So what does Teams do? It provides something that is often unique to an organization. It's often an area of improvement that you may not have. It replaces the likes of Zoom and Skype for video conferencing. Often, as I mentioned earlier, the use of Teams is limited to video conferencing or calling, but there's so much more than that. It can also replace tools such as Slack for instant messaging. So the IT team, 5 years ago used Slack, and then Teams came out, and it was a big win, although it was pretty rocky in the first couple of years. It can reduce email usage and the speed of communication internally. And it's often used as a notice board or discussion platform. I'm going to go back to the slide. So if you're not using the instant messaging part of Teams extensively, I'd really suggest you consider, I mean, we at the IT team, we use email very little. It's slower. You often don't get a response quickly. Now, some organizations might like that, and you often don't have a good record of emailing, whereas we use communication in Teams just all the time. Send a message, get a quick answer. We can see whether we're online, we can see whether we're at our desk, we can see whether we're busy. It is quite powerful. We really do like it. We have people on the road and mobile, and we don't have to call them on their cell phone. We don't have to call them or send them an email and wait. We generally, if we need to talk to them, we'll send them a message, or we'll pick up, or we'll do a video call or an audio call. But this here is also where it gets deep. We use it for announcements. We use it for questions. We use it for various projects. The project is big. If we take on a new customer, we create a team, and that's where we put all our data and put our messages and put information. We have emails that send that tech notify one. We have a change from a vendor, an email goes in there and it pops up and we can see it, and someone jumps on and says, yep, I've got this. We have announcements going in there from other vendors. There's a lot that you can do with this. It can kind of become the center of communication, whereas 10 years ago it was email. So I'd encourage you to at least understand the potential of this more, because it is a big thing. And I can't spend too much time talking about this because there's probably, it could warrant a Teams webinar, which we do have. But it is more that don't believe Teams is just this annoying little tool that pops up and it does video calling sometimes. It is quite powerful. So that's Teams. Now moving on, OneDrive for Business. This is a slightly old screenshot of my messy OneDrive. So I'm going to show you a few slides here. So this is OneDrive. So OneDrive, it's storing documents. Well, it's often the most common place to store your own personal, and when I mean personal, I don't mean like private photos or whatever. I mean your individual documents for you as a person, as a staff member, rather than the company folder. This is your individual document storage. Now, presently, you might be storing it in documents or desktop or whatever, or an H drive or an iDrive, but OneDrive effectively replaces that. It also backs up things on your machine, which can also help to minimize other issues. Now, often we'll talk to organizations and the idea is no one should ever store anything in here, and that is true. But often we'll store things we're working on, we'll store sort of things that aren't critical, maybe an image that we're going to paste somewhere or something like that. You know, there could be anything before we're ready to upload it. The other thing is OneDrive provides access. If you can see down the bottom there, it provides that it's the tool that allows you to access SharePoint for your organizational storage. SharePoint also has an intranet. So that's actually quite an important thing. So SharePoint becomes your document storage. So if you have a file server or you're using Google Drive or you're using Box or Dropbox, I should say, that's more common than Box, SharePoint will become the storage for that. Now you can access it via Windows Explorer, which uses OneDrive to access. So you can access it via this, or you can access it via the website. And some of the guys at the IT team, they're staunchly sort of, hey, everyone should access things via the web. I'm a little bit old school and lazy, so I like to access it via Explorer. I kind of have been doing that for a long time. But you can have people using it in different ways. Now, I would say that the most effective way is for everyone to do it via the web, because there's a lot of reasons why it is. But often what we have to do, the decision makers when we're deciding to roll these things out, including yourselves, is find something that is going to have moderate impact on the users, or at least be successful, and allow people to work the way that they want. So doing it via this is an option, and using it via the web is another option, at least initially. In addition to that, you can use SharePoint as a intranet. Now, this isn't a very brilliant visual, and if we have time, I might show you an example our SharePoint. But it's basically not only does it store documents, but it can basically be like your internal website. I guess that's what an intranet is. We use it for information on staff, information on training, health and safety. As you can see, we have a lot of forms at the IT team, forms for this and forms for that, and I'll come back to that a little bit later. So yeah, that's the main thing. SharePoint is multi-purpose. Teams is multi-purpose. And you can use all of those functions, or you can use some of them, but at least the good thing is to know what's possible and then sort of understand whether you want to do it now or later, or even never. The other thing that SharePoint allows you to do with OneDrive is you can collaborate. Now, this is a basic example, but this is what it looks like. So if you're collaborating, it allows you to edit documents like Word documents, PowerPoint, and Excel even, live at the same time, and we do it a lot at the IT team. We have not daily, it was daily, we have a meeting every 2 days, and it's a management meeting, it's an operations meeting, and we are basically constantly pasting data in, and we basically go from the top to the bottom, and then we're looking at key metrics in our organization and key data, and we sort of update it like 5 minutes before the meeting. A few people will just chuck a few things in, and we'll update it on the fly and add notes on the fly, and it's very powerful. There will be better ways for us to do that, but this is a very effective way for us to use the tool. Whereas pre-COVID, when we weren't using these tools very well, we'd have to sort of send the information out like a board pack, and it was just, everything was slow. So yeah. Also, when I'm doing proposals, we'll often pull model people in, and they'll be able to edit at the same time. OneDrive for Business. So what is the purpose of OneDrive? Because it can be, I'm aware that OneDrive and SharePoint can be very confusing. So OneDrive stores documents for the individual. It can also be used to back up files on your workstation. So it wants to try and select things like desktop and documents and favorites and pictures as well, so that if you lose your machine, even if you're not supposed to store documents in those locations, you won't lose the data. It's accessible anywhere. If you need to, you can get it via the web or on your phone, so you can't be missing your data. Smart Sync is a feature on OneDrive that allows you to have access to a lot of documents as though they are on your device, but they're actually using just a small amount of data. And data is shareable with outside parties. You can share a folder or share a file with a third party, and you can require them to authenticate, so you can't just let a stranger access that data. Now, SharePoint, it's a different method of storing data for your organization. It can replace systems like a file server or Dropbox or Google Drive. It can be used similar to Dropbox and Google Drive, or it can be used fully online. You can actually even access all your data via Teams. In addition to that, you can set it up as an intranet. Those two things don't need to be exclusive. You can have your files structured here, and you can use an intranet for, you know, how you want your team to interact with information about your organization. So moving on from that, love to hear if anyone wants to know more about that stuff. We have Azure AD and Azure AD. I'm going to take a 1 second break because I've got a bunch of questions. Okay. I'm sorry, Belinda, I'll try and work on my terminology. Thank you for the feedback. So the question Belinda has asked about Exchange. It's a great question. So, which may have been answered by Kira. Thank you, Kira. So Exchange is the traditional Microsoft mail server platform. So if you were running a server in your office and you're using Exchange, you had commonly what was the most premier mail system you could really get in the world, but it was based on a server. Then they moved to 365, and you can still have an Exchange server on site, but that's called Exchange Online. So it's really the email platform within Microsoft 365 is called Exchange or Exchange Online. Hopefully that answers your question. So if you've got email on 365, you're using Exchange. If you have email elsewhere, unless it's on a server in your office, it's probably not Exchange. Anne Wills has asked what's the difference between Teams and Messenger. So if you are meaning Teams and Facebook Messenger, which I'm hoping. So Teams, I mean, yes, you're right. So Teams and Messenger can do the same thing. A lot of people will use Facebook Messenger, which is an example of something called shadow IT. So if you in your organization, your staff are messaging each other using Facebook Messenger, the downside of that is you don't have access to that information. If people were to leave, you can't see it. Now that might not be the highest, the most important thing, but you have no control over that data, no access to it. People can, outside parties could theoretically get access to it in a nefarious way, and you wouldn't know that because it's bound to people's personal email, their personal Facebook account. So the idea behind using Teams as opposed to using services like WhatsApp or Messenger is it's secure, it's for the office, it's very clear when people should be using it, and it's got a lot greater functionality than the likes of Messenger. You can do a video call with Messenger, but it is a bit different to doing a video call with Teams. Okay, hopefully I've answered your question. Getting a lot of questions. I'll continue with the presentation and then come back to questions, and then before the end, and then we'll have another segment at the end. So Azure AD and Intune. This is a really important part of 365 that potentially not too many will be using in here. It is often the next step in the journey after you go to Teams and SharePoint. Right, so the first thing that you may already be doing is you can authenticate your workstation to Azure AD Workplace Join. Now, just because it has the word Azure in there doesn't mean it's complicated. So what that means is you've got your laptop, your HP laptop or your compact laptop or whatever it is, or even your Apple. You can have it so that the password that you use or your staff use for 365 becomes the password that they use to log in. Now, it's not just about the password, it's actually the account. So what will happen is when you log into your device, it actually checks in with 365 or Azure and goes, hey, is this a verified person? Is this password correct? Should they be allowed in? And then they log in. It allows you to make sure that it just keeps things really tight. You've got the same accounts. You've got, it's an organizational device, as in it's bound to the organization. And you can then, with the use of Intune, you can set policies. So without going too far, but a common end result is that people will set it so that unless someone is logging into an organizational device, so say you've got an organization, you've gone through, you've got a device in Azure AD and you're running Intune, you can set it so that unless someone is logging into a device that is tied to the organization, they cannot access the organization's data. And when you actually go back, often our benefactors, our funders, the ministries or the government bodies actually expect you to have that. They expect you to not have people accessing data from key data from a personal device. And if you aren't using Azure AD or Intune or a domain controller in an office, then what you're actually doing is the device set up like a personal device where people just have a password that they set and it stays there, and it's just, you know, Sandy, and the password is whatever, and it's not managed by IT. They might not even have a password, you know, it could get lost. And that's the problem with when the system is not authenticating with Azure AD or authenticating with a server, is if, let's say, you left the laptop at the cafe, someone with very little capability could get through that workstation password and access the device. Now, if you have Azure AD set up, it is very difficult to do so. Other things can be set. You can even set things like that they can't install software, they can't play games on the device. There's lots of other things. It's not about being Big Brother. It's generally about compliance. So taking it even further, when you go down this path, you can do things like say, you cannot access your organization's data outside of Australia, or you cannot access certain data outside of Australia, or you cannot log into an email address outside of Adelaide, or outside of Australasia, or you know, you block Russia and China and those types of places that might be more commonly hackable. But you can even say you cannot access the data if the antivirus isn't working. You cannot access the data if the system isn't up to date. Now, I know that might seem extreme, but these are the types of things that our governing bodies and the various sort of places that create these policies do expect us to do. So, but you don't have to go all the way down that path. You can just start with getting the machines authenticated, which is, you know, really a minimum. So I'd suggest considering that. So other cool functions that I'll go into. We've still got a bit of time, guys, so don't worry, we've plenty of time for questions. Other cool functions that you can set up. Planner, it's a project management tool that ties in with something called your to-do or tasks, which is for individuals that are adding tasks and flagging emails in their Outlook, and then you can have Planner, which ties it all together. So it's a really good sort of task management tool. You have Power BI, which is about reporting and data insights and that type of thing, which is really powerful. Forms and Flow. I might talk a little bit about this. Forms and Flow is probably one of the most valuable parts of 365, we believe. We've done webinars specifically on that, but a common thing we suggest you do is use Microsoft Forms to take forms that might be paper-based or that you don't have, maybe processes that you should have a form for or a policy for, and put them into SharePoint or Teams as a form, and then people fill them out. A common thing would be an expense claim or a travel request, maybe even a leave request. You put it in there, and then you can use Power Automate to program very easily where that goes, who needs to approve it, does it send to finance, does it send to admin. These things are incredibly easy to set up and can have a major impact on your, on productivity and doing things right. So I'd highly suggest that is an area of improvement, and you should put it on mark it on your own to-do list. If these are the things I can get value. 365, this is something I could have touched on earlier, has a secure score. This one's a bit out of date, but you'll be able to see after you set up your secure score. If you're already using it, you might be able to go and have a look, and it'll tell you what are the things you should be doing, like enabling the likes of MFA, which is a really important common thing that you should have running in your 365. Also things like data recording, everything. So 365 has some default settings, but it doesn't force things upon you because it doesn't want to cause impact. So MFA, multi-factor authentication for your users, is one that it doesn't force yet, but it does highly recommend, and we would also highly recommend it. Now, I'll take a wee stab at some of these further questions before we continue. So, can you use SharePoint offline without access to the internet? That's from Caitlin. So the answer is yes, to a degree. So you can synchronize folders. So if you decided that, hey, I'm going to go on a plane, and apparently everyone, the airplane is always the thing that you use as the example, even though airplanes often now have internet. But if you were going to go away and you wanted a special folder, let's call it let's say it's for a project or a finance folder, and you wanted to access that. You can use the OneDrive tool on your device to synchronize that down. It will sync a copy down permanently or semi-permanently to your device, and then you'll be able to access those files. Now, what happens is when you then connect to the internet, if you've made a whole lot of changes, it'll try and sync it up. Sometimes there are difficulties. Someone else made a comment on here, particularly if someone else has been editing that file at the same time as you. But it does have some semi-graceful ways to merge those two. But inevitably, if you're doing that, you will get the odd conflict. So yes, you can use it offline. Now, using the web-based parts of SharePoint is just not really possible. I mean, someone could tell me I'm wrong, but functionally, it is like trying to access a website offline, if that makes sense. Next question. Can you share live files with other users of 365 that are not part of your organization? That's from Claire. That is a yes. So we have board members that are not part of they don't have an IT team email account. And so we have certain folders that we will share with their non-IT team accounts, and it requires them to authenticate. So Microsoft has an authentication method that requires that they can use anything. They don't need to be in 365, but it does mean that they have to authenticate. They can't just be anyone. They can't forward it on to someone else, and that person can get it. So yes, you can do that. Guest access, I believe it's called. But you can share files with the world and not require authentication. But I don't believe it's a folder. I think it's individual files. So you might have an image, and you've got it in there, and you just wanted to share it with, your family, and you didn't care who they forwarded it to. You could technically do that. 365 has things like timers on that, so you can. I think it defaults to 30 days. So the answer is yes to that one, Claire. Allison's got a training question, which I'll address at the end. And Rachel is having some issues with conflict files, which I'll try to address at the end. Also, Rachel's also asked about backup, which I'll come back to. Good question, Rachel. And Richard has asked, can you share files with anonymous email different to your work /365 email address? The answer is yes. Same. Hopefully, it's the same. I'm answering similar question as before, with a guest account. Now, anonymous email, I believe you're just meaning a non-work or non-365, just a random one like a Gmail. That also applies. Thank you. Good questions, guys. Keep them coming. Okay, so the common migration path. If you were to be going, okay, we've started in 365, where should we go? This is the most common one we would see. Get your email and Exchange Online. That's the first thing to do. Now, I'm not including Microsoft Office in here because I think most people will have Office in one way, shape, or form, but get your email into Exchange Online. Then get your documents into SharePoint and OneDrive for Business. People will often start with, they'll get the individual documents because it gives you 1 terabyte. It's really easy to do, and it's the simplest, and then look at getting the full organizational documents into SharePoint. But this is sort of step 2. Get comms functions into Teams. And when I say other comms functions, I mean get your instant messaging into Teams, get your video calling and conferencing into Teams. Really consider moving from Zoom to Teams. I can tell you that it can do everything Zoom can do. And you can save money. You're probably paying Zoom Pro, maybe, so it can do it. Just for example, often there's a misconception that to invite someone to Teams, to a Teams call, they need to have a Teams account, whereas Zoom allows a guest or a random. Teams can do that as well. So we encourage people to use these tools because there are other benefits as far as just having all your data in one place. Deploy some key security functions at that stage, and we'd say things like MFA is critical. Potentially we should do that up the top, but also we probably suggest you put in place some level of conditional access. Defender for 365, which I haven't detailed, is an advanced mail filtering system. So once you've got Exchange, you get a basic mail filtering and mail protection. At this stage, we generally look at improving the security. Then we go to the transfer identities from a domain controller or from a work group to Azure AD for authentication. This was the Intune thing I mentioned before, but you can start just by getting the device into Azure AD. What it does, it can be difficult, is you often people have to recreate their profiles on their laptop. So it's not an insignificant task, but it is beneficial. Then we suggest people look at starting to use Teams for internal communications. So that's for instant messaging and the channels that I showed you. Then get Intune up and running to replace things like domain controllers and security settings. And then you can for sure decommission your service. Now you might have decommissioned your service further up after email or after OneDrive, but if you're holding on to that, it kind of feels like I have to say, if you're still doing a domain controller, which a lot of organizations will, then you can't decommission it until you deploy Intune. And then start evaluating the lesser known 365 services, things like Planner and To-Do and even Forms, etc. So onto the licensing options. So as all the organizations in here should be able to get 10 licenses for free of M365 Business Premium. That is really the best license that, pretty much the main premium license that is possible. There are other licenses that have some fancy functions, but this is the best one. It can pretty much do everything. So you've got Exchange, which is email, you've got Teams, you've got OneDrive, you've got SharePoint, you've got Outlook, you've got all of that. Now those top two lines will come with a business standard license. The bottom ones are exclusive to Business Premium. So Intune, Azure IP, Azure Information Protection, Defender, Conditional Access, and Windows Virtual Desktop, which some people will use. So Azure Information Protection, just give you an idea about what's possible in there. That sort of breaks into a few. A common, really advanced feature that you would do down the track is you can have it so that your staff can't send credit card information on their email. It will come up and say, hey, this is a sensitive data. You can have it so they can't send maybe a national health identification number. Maybe it will flag, it'll pop up and say, are you sure you wish to send this? So you can't accidentally send information out. These are possible, and it's very powerful when you start to get down that realm. You can have it so that it watermarks sensitive data. There's lots of things that you can do with the advanced functions here. Now, continuing on though, Business Basic, which includes just Exchange, Teams, OneDrive, and SharePoint, as well as a bunch of other things, but those are the core functions. It doesn't include the Office software. And E1 is the same. E1 has a few more security functions, but ultimately it doesn't include Office. Those are free. I think you can have 100 or 200 or 300. Kira, I'm not sure if you know how many licenses they can get, but it is a lot, usually more than people need. So if you have a core team that's running, commonly we have some organizations that have a core team of 5 or 10, but then they have a whole lot of other people that maybe need less that work for them. Other times people get the 10 licenses and then they need to pay for another 30 or 40 licenses of Business Premium, but often there will be a use of the Business Basic or E1, whether it be board members or part-timers or contractors or whatever. These are all possible options. This is a ugly image that's a little bit grainy. I'm sorry about that. That gives a breakdown of the others. It's a little bit dated, but as you can see, Business Basic includes Exchange, Teams, SharePoint, and OneDrive. Standard includes that, plus the Office software that you install on your workstation. And Premium includes that, plus everything else. And then the apps, which is just the software, includes Outlook and Word and Excel. So how do we adopt it? Best to start somewhere. For those people that don't have it, you probably already have a 365 account, Microsoft Office. E1 can be a way to get started. Consider starting with email. Setup is easy, but the migration is the challenge. How do you get all your old email and all your old documents over? It is possible, but sometimes you might need assistance from a provider, your provider or someone like us. Set goals, start with getting the email and the documents, and then sort of work progressively from there. Don't try and do it all at the start. And understand what problems you want to overcome or you need to overcome. Security, mobility are often things that people need. Where to from here? QA coming up. Contact us if you're interested in sort of a bit of assessment or a security audit. You can sign up to our newsletter, but if you want help, then feel free to let us know. I don't want to dwell on that because it's not a sales pitch, but it's just more we can help if you need. Question time. Okay. We've got a good amount of time, so 9 minutes, brilliant. Okay, questions we have yet to answer. Alison asked, how do you invite outsiders to a Teams meeting? Is there a maximum number of participants at one time? Great question. You do get there is a limit, but it's big now. You know, we do, I think, oh, look, you've got me there. You can do this type of meeting with Teams. So I'm doing a webinar presentation. I think you can have 200 or 250 attendees with Teams. I think it's called presentation mode or presenter mode or something. But I think as guests, I'm sure you'll be able to have 20 or 30 guests if you need to. Might start to sort of, you know, crack a little bit under the pressure, but you can have many. That's my understanding of it. It's a good question. Now, if I'm potentially wrong there, I'll find out. Great question. Fiona has asked, what is the difference between Exchange and Outlook? So, great one. So, Outlook is the software that runs on your machine. Like you've got Word and Outlook, so it, you know, Outlook comes up. But the platform that the mail is actually stored and flowing in and out of is Exchange, and that is not stored on your computer. That is stored in the cloud in 365. Another example would be, it's kind of like if you think about it, Exchange is the post office, and Outlook is probably closer to your mailbox at the end of your footpath, the end of your driveway. Yeah, so that's, I guess, a pretty average analogy. Another question from Lisa, or a question from Lisa. If using an educational license currently, would your recommendation be to stay on this or upgrade to a business license? I would say, if you can, it would depend on the educational license, Lisa, and it depends on the numbers. Sometimes the educational licenses, you get a lot of them. I presume you qualify for not-for-profit licenses. I think the business premium licenses would be really worth going for. If you've got less than 10 people that would need the business premium license, absolutely go for that. But I'm happy to answer your question in a bit more detail, Lisa, once I know the circumstances. While I've got another question coming in, I might give a very, very, very brief demonstration of a couple of things, which I shouldn't do. This is kind of free range presenting. It's not really the way you're supposed to do it, but I'll give you an idea. Who knows what we're going to find. So this here it's out of date. We're actually redoing it soon. This here is our intranet. We've got a people hub, called the hub. We called it the hub. People hub, we've got tech hub, we've got operations hub, we've got client success hub, internal initiative. So under the people hub, we have a bit about the IT team. It's good for new people. We sort of bring on quite a few people. So you get people profiles in there. We have health and safety. We have a level up program, which is about training and some of the initiatives we have there. Social events and Teams meetings. It's kind of like if you're coming into the organization, this is kind of where you can go. But a big one that I want to show you is the forms. We spend a lot of time talking about and using forms, and they have been a very big change for the IT team. So as you can see, here's an example. Now you can access this via Teams, you can access it via mobile, you can access it via SharePoint. This is where it started. People wanting to buy stuff and just grabbing a credit card and buying it, and then us going, what the hell is that purchase? Is it real? Is it a scam? So we started to log that, so people had to do it. Now, when they don't do it, we very clearly, and we sort of push these, we very clearly can say, how did that happen? That's unauthorized. Also, expense claims. So if people are buying stuff in their own personal things or driving or whatever, they need to use it. This was an important one as well. Credit for a client when we do have required doing credits. Mileage claim, which is a little bit different to an expense claim. So a common one would be, if I give you an idea of what these look like. Let's do a expense claim. This pops up in forms. It's not too slow, not too fast, but what is the reason? What is the value? Is this for internal, external? If you click client, it jumps out and expands into different areas. So client name, AutoTouch was our system, uploading a receipt, and then who you need to approve this request. If this can actually be done really intelligently, so you could actually show it doesn't need to be done by this. It's just we've been a bit lazy with this one. And then click submit, and then it will go to me. I shouldn't submit for myself, but if I submit this, it'll go to Lucy, and then it'll only be approved by her, and it's the approval structure in Power Automate's really cool. She can see all her approvals, her historic approvals or pending approvals, and then once she approves it, it'll fire off to finance, and they can see that Conan has submitted one and Lucy has approved it, and then we've got a track record of all of it. So it is quite powerful. We also have feedback. So if anyone across the company has a bad experience or wants to submit feedback, type the client name, what happened, what have we done, what information should we know, and then we get it and we process, and that goes into Teams. And I'll show you that very quickly. I shouldn't, but I will. I'll show you it. So our Teams is a bit of a builder's house. So we have a lot in here, but as you can see, these are form notifications. So I'll go to another one. So we have when there's an error. We don't have errors all the time. It probably makes it look worse. But so we have one for security. And so when there's, no, that's a different one. So hold on, I'll find it. Security, I'm looking a bit silly here. I cannot find it. I've got so many, as you can see, we've got a lot of these. So let's use it. Here it is. What am I talking about? So security, it was right under my nose. So these are submitted when someone encounters a security concern or issue, and then this is the result of the form, and then it has to be responded to. Someone responds to it, and then we know this is generally closed out. The feedback form one is here. So this just gives you an idea about what's possible. We use it extensively. It's very powerful. Our Teams is a pretty important part of what we do. The general chat, this is the, we would put absences, such and such is away, someone's absent leave, that kind of thing. But this just gives you a little snippet into it. I know someone's asked how SharePoint information looks for a file folder. Okay, very quickly, this is SharePoint via Explorer. So I sync down the folders that are important to me. Customer proposals is one. This was something I was working on with some footage we did for an event. So I sync that down, and the rest is in SharePoint, and it's everywhere. So yeah, I'm not supposed to show this because I can show something that's private. But anyway, hopefully that gives you a little bit of a snippet of what it looks like, what SharePoint looks like, what Teams looks like, and the forms, which I believe is important. So do we have any more questions? I don't think so. Hopefully I've answered everything. But thank you very much for attending. I hope you did get something out of this. But the key thing, as I'd say, is fire some questions through. Send a webinar at the IT team. Feel free to send them to Kira. We do really like to help, and we like to answer questions, and sometimes the difficult ones. We can just steer you in the right direction. You don't need to engage us commercially or anything. You can just sort of help to give you some advice and steer you in the right direction. Everyone's situation and circumstances are different, and sometimes they can be really complicated, and sometimes they can be difficult. Some of you that have asked questions, if I feel I've given an inadequate answer, I might reach out to you and give you a couple more. And Belinda, I apologise if the terminology was a little bit unclear. I'll work on that. I think that's all. Thank you very much. I'm not sure, Kiara, if you want to sign off.
Thank you, Conan. And just to let everyone know as well that we will upload the recording later on this week. Conan will supply us with the slides so you can have a look through them as well. And if you can fill out the survey after, it would be great because it helps us know what we're sending out to you and what we can improve and what we can do better. And hopefully we'll hear from Conan soon on the next one. Thank you.
Wonderful. Thank you, everyone. Take care.